Let's face it, we've all dreamt of it, the ultimate crossover. Batman and Iron Man working side by side against a cosmic-level threat. But here's something worth thinking about. The MCU isn't Gotham. It's a world built around global politics, international treaties, and the United Nations. A world where vigilantes aren't exactly considered heroes. So imagine how that world would react to a masked billionaire running black site prisons and illegal surveillance without authorization and accountability. Will they make him a part of their team, or would they see him as a liability? Let's find out. Batman is undoubtedly one of the most iconic heroes ever created. He stands in the dark, so others don't have to. He fights crime without powers, without super serums, and without magic. He relies on his brilliant intellect, fear, and most importantly, preparation. That's why Gotham City needs him. But here's the uncomfortable thought no one likes to sit with for too long. What if Bruce Wayne didn't exist in Gotham? What if he existed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe instead? Not a crossover fantasy, a team-up, or a cameo, but fully transplanted into the MCU's political system. A world where superheroes are not just symbols, they're monitored assets. A world where enhanced individuals are tracked, legislated, and sometimes hunted. When you remove Gotham, a city defined by corruption and institutional collapse, and drop Batman into a structured, globally regulated universe like the MCU, something strange happens. He doesn't look like Cap, or Peter, or Black Panther. Instead, he starts looking like a rogue extremist billionaire operating outside international law. Post-Ultron, Tony Stark is no longer the reckless weapons manufacturer from Iron Man 1. He's now more considerate and deeply aware of the damage unchecked innovation can cause. That awareness is exactly why he supports regulation. It isn't blind faith in government. It's fear of repeating catastrophic mistakes. Now imagine Tony analyzing Bruce Wayne's operational profile. A billionaire genius with advanced armor systems, hidden technology, undisclosed satellite networks, encrypted contingency protocols, and most importantly, a psychological profile rooted in trauma and obsession. In the DC canon, Batman creates methods to incapacitate every member of the Justice League if they go rogue. He prepares for betrayal, loss of control, and even the worst-case scenarios. Does the last one ring a bell? It's the entire reason Tony Stark and Bruce Banner created Ultron in secrecy. Stark wanted an armor shield around the Earth to protect it from intergalactic threats, which means he's already aware of how dangerous that kind of thinking can become. The Avengers are built on trust. Batman isn't. He operates on preparation. So if Tony ever discovered that Bruce Wayne had built contingency plans to disable Avengers-level heroes, that wouldn't be a friendly disagreement. It would justify immediate intervention. Tony would no longer see Bruce as a partner. He would see him as a destabilizing wildcard with the resources to escalate a conflict at any moment. And if Tony Stark doesn't trust someone, it's practically game over. Now imagine Bruce Wayne entering that world. He doesn't disclose his identity. He doesn't register his technology. He doesn't seek authorization before engaging in combat operations, runs black site interrogation chambers, and even taps into surveillance systems without warrants. In Gotham, he gets away with this. But in the MCU, that wouldn't be tolerated. And Marvel has its reasons for such vigilant policing. Tony Stark's Ultron project nearly tore the planet apart. S.H.I.E.L.D. collapsed after Hydra's infiltration. This world has already experienced what happens when heroes operate in secret without accountability. Against this backdrop, Batman doesn't look like a protector. The MCU's structure favors transparency, even when it's flawed. Batman rejects transparency entirely. He believes in control through secrecy. And in a post-Ultron world, secrecy equals instability. When Steve Rogers and several other Avengers refused to sign the Sokovia Accords, they weren't quietly ignored. The government, along with the remaining Avengers led by Tony Stark, actively pursued them. Several members of Team Cap were captured during the airport battle in Captain America: Civil War. This shows that the MCU system doesn't overlook unsanctioned power, it moves to suppress it. Peter Parker faced something similar. A teenager was placed under federal investigation and had his assets seized simply because his identity became public and a villain manipulated the narrative. The Department of Damage Control treated him as a legal liability, not a friendly neighborhood hero. Now compare that framework to Batman's methods. Bruce Wayne diverts corporate resources from Wayne Enterprises into covert military R&D. He develops advanced weapons platforms without disclosure. He engages in psychological warfare, hacks communication networks, infiltrates crime scenes, and detains suspects without any form of due process. In Gotham, these actions are tolerated because the city itself is systematically broken. But inside the MCU's regulatory environment, those same actions would be considered intolerable.
The past 4 years, you've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. That's an arrangement the governments of the world can no longer tolerate.
Even if the intention behind them is protection. The MCU has intergovernmental treaties, and a media ecosystem that turns quickly and aggressively on unchecked power. The biggest example of this is J. Jonah Jameson. He hates Spider-Man because he stays anonymous and has some serious powers. Imagine Batman moves to the MCU, and you see J. Jonah Jameson screaming this on live television.
Batman is a masked menace, a billionaire vigilante terrorizing our city, and you call that a hero?
Tell me, if you lived in the MCU, would you trust a vigilant billionaire in a bat suit, or would you call for his arrest? If Bruce Wayne doesn't reveal his identity and publicly justifies his actions, like he doesn't in the DC universe, he'd only be suspicious. In a world already traumatized by billionaires building weapons in secret, he'd be framed as a potential radicalized elite who's using technology to bypass the system. And the MCU doesn't reward that behavior. It punishes it. Gotham is defined by fear. Carmine Falcone, the Joker, Scarface, and many other villains operate through theatrical symbolism. They cultivate fear because fear gives them power. Batman responds by amplifying that same symbolism. He weaponizes fear to deter criminals. He becomes something so intimidating that even the worst monsters hesitate to confront him. But the MCU, especially after the blip, is trying to rebuild global stability. Governments are fragile. Public trust in institutions is low. Millions of people suddenly returned after 5 years of absence, and the planet is still processing that collective trauma. In that environment, Batman represents intimidation rather than reassurance. He doesn't inspire hope like Captain America, symbolize unity like Black Panther, or embody neighborhood heroism like Spider-Man. Psychologically, Batman aligns more closely with the pre-redemption Winter Soldier, effective, controlled, but operating outside sanctioned systems. Now, by no means are we disrespecting Batman. He is the way he is because of his circumstances and past experiences. We're simply providing context. Heroes are shaped by the systems around them. Gotham is written as a city where institutions have failed so completely that someone had to step in and take control. The MCU, however, is written as a world trying to regulate power responsibly. It favors flawed institutions over unchecked individuals. Place Bruce Wayne inside that framework, and his methods no longer appear as noble rebellion. They begin to look like destabilization. In fact, if Batman refused to sign the Sokovia Accords and refused to register or disclose his technology, the Avengers themselves would likely attempt to stop him. One Reddit user summarized it well. Going rogue and attempting to fight crime alone without revealing his identity would immediately attract the attention of New York's street-level heroes: Spider-Man, Daredevil, Mayor Cage, Captain America, Moon Knight, and others. Those heroes would actively coordinate to stop him and explain that this isn't how things operate here. Which brings us to the real question. Is Batman considered a hero because he is morally superior, or because Gotham's collapse leaves no alternative? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the Multiverse Index for more Marvel and DC deep dives, analysis, and theories.